permission to speak. Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you! Never lose hope.
Here, Fred Shaman.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, Fred!
Welcome to episode 447 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, May 16th, 2024 in the evening. Coming to you from Nomergon, Ohio, it's me, Edelweiss. From North Bend, Massachusetts, we have WickedGood.
Hi.
From Teldrassil, California, we have Magesa.
Hello.
And from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. As always, thank you for your reviews. If you would like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice. It always helps other people find the show. So, Life and Ladder. I will start mostly Hades. Yeah, lots of Hades too. To the point that I'm in some pain in my wrists because of holding the Steam Deck, which is quite heavy. I did finally manage to get a Chronos clear, and I think I've gotten like 2, maybe 3. I think just 2 Eris clears. There's different directions you can go with the game, up or down. So I've gotten two up, which is shorter because they haven't finished it yet, and 1 down. And my goodness, it's there's still so much to do, but I'm gonna hold off until the next patch, where they're gonna make some of the resource stuff a little easier. Lots of resources to gather to upgrade your weapons and your aspects, and like I don't know if I just don't remember how slow some of the early parts of Hades were, but it definitely feels like I'm progressing slowly. And I guess maybe part of that is just because there's twice as much stuff with like two areas that you can, delve out into, and therefore 2 different paths of resources to upgrade a large number of things. But it's super fun, and the builds are great. I am wondering if they're going to add like 1 more deity later on. They've like referenced one of them that isn't presently in, and so I'm wondering if maybe they'll add them. But even with the current ones, it's been quite great. I have, I think, all the keepsakes that I can have at this point, but I could be wrong about that. The little things you take with you on your runs to help you out. And being a nerd of Greek mythology, I know all the characters. So it's very fun to see their takes on them. And Odysseus is in this one, which is great. I love Odysseus.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But apart from that, on Ladder, I tried various things with the mini set came out. Bomb Warrior has not manifested, even though it looked just like there. It just turns out either you're too slow against aggro decks, or sometimes you run out of draw against slower decks, and it becomes awkward because they don't die right away since you're bombs. Yeah, it's... Maybe someone will find a build for it eventually, but presently it has felt to me like either I'm all in on the stuff, and so that's very powerful and good against slow decks, but then bad against aggro, or I try and add more clears and then sometimes don't have enough stuff against slower decks. It's an awkward balance to try and strike. So I've just been playing Good Shaman, because what else am I going to do? I don't know. Dabbled with Spell Mage, which is interesting, but people are actually playing that. So Shaman it is. And no one's that I've seen has been playing that, and it's been great. I had someone unwittingly put themselves to 8 life, and I was like, Rag. Oh, it was good. Very good. And murdering pain locks here and there, obviously, because we have burn. It's just like you've got these great little synergies and play stuff on curve, and Pozic is still a quite good card, whether they play the things or not. And it's nice to have the ability to gain Wind Fury to go with the, gain 3 attack this turn.
Tides of Time. What? Not Tides of Time.
Turn the tides.
Turn the Tides. What? Tides of Time is a player who probably hasn't played in a million years.
Yeah. It's like you've got all these various ways of having burst from, Novice Sapper with, the spell damage and burn spells, or Turn the Tides with Wind Fury, or just, oh, hey, they have an empty board, guess I'll rag you. And it just all comes together. It's great.
We will be hearing more about that.
Oh, I also have Shutter Block in this deck because of the little Murloc dude that you play early on, and then later on, you just are Galakron Shaman. So, hey, look, 4 8/8s. What's up?
I pretty much missed that, but I have heard tell of Galakron Shaman.
That was one of the most broken decks when it first came out, and they had to nerf it a couple of times, if I remember correctly. But it was not quite day one Demon Hunter, but it was close when it came out.
Like, it just upgraded very quickly, very easily, such that you would Galakron on 7 and get 4 rushing 8/8s, and that was a lot.
That'd be a lot now.
I mean, also a 5/2 weapon, because when you fully upgrade Galakron, you just get an Arcanite Reaper. I mean, it's called a Claw, but same difference. Yeah. No, it was it's good to have that feel. It's not quite the same, you've got to play the Shutter Block, and it's not until turn 8 that you get the stuff, but it is still cool to just be like, look, a board of 8/8s. Yeah, that's it for me. How about you, Magesa?
Well, I had not been playing a whole lot, but after I mentioned last week that World 8 had this Handbuff Paladin, I picked that up and played a couple games. I ran into someone who was also playing Handbuff Paladin, had some very interesting card choices, and beat me, partly with just winning the early board with an unbuffed Outfit Tailor, and then I just didn't have any draw. And they actually had Whelp Wrangler, which I have now switched to Audio Medic, which I think is better, but Whelp Wrangler was kind of hilarious when you have like 3/4, like 1 mana 3/4 taunts, like 3 of them is not bad. People would mouse over it when I played it against them, because I picked that up after losing to this person. So coin concede to you, person who I lost to.
Wait, you're a paladin. That's a priest card. What are you doing? How are you breaking the game?
I was happy. I was like, it's a priest card. I get to play it in paladin. So, and I shot right up to legend, came in at 800 and went, oh, that's pretty good. And I have managed to stay there after the mini set, partly because on the day of the mini set, after it launched that afternoon, I did not play ladder. I messaged Edel because I saw she was online and was like, can you play against me? And then managed to misplay really badly the whole time. Was like, it's a good thing I'm not on ladder.
It's all right. I had some too.
I was like, oh, there's a 12 health minion. I'm going to safety goggles, sanitize, and hero power. That's the wrong order. That is very much not the correct order. So stuff like that. But picked back up a little more Handbuff Paladin and some Lightshow Mage today, and I have managed to be in top 500, which I'm very pleased with. I think since I have been to these ranks before, but not except for with like a deck that I was really specializing in, like Naga Mage or Purple Priest. So it's very exciting. I've got a little bit of ladder anxiety, but as I would say, the only way to get used to a rank is to play there. So I'm trying to play there. I played a couple of games casual Lightshow Mage just to get a sense of it, but then you don't really get a sense of it unless you actually play it against ranked opponents. After my second casual game with it, and somebody had a not really ready for primetime Death Knight deck and then rage quit when they saw that I had a ready for primetime deck, and I was like, oh, okay, I should stop beating up on people and actually play this game. So I had one game against someone in top 200 who was playing Well Rogue. I had been ready for them to be playing the Sonya Rogue with the name we can't say on this show and actually know how to play it. But they were playing Wishing Well Rogue. They actually got really bad hits, but it was just a lot of stats on the board. I cleared it with the Keeper's Strength. Then they, because at this point I was playing Handbuff Paladin. Then they played Tess and made the whole thing again, and I did not have my other Keeper's Strength, and they had breakdanced the text, so even if I did have my other Keeper's Strength, they would have just done it again. So I didn't win that game. But yeah, I'll be talking more about the Handbuff as well as the Lightshow Mage. I think my favorite Lightshow Mage game that I've had, I discovered a rewind, and I was facing an aggro Paladin. I had both malfunctions, the new card that does 6 in pings to the enemy board. I had both of them, and then I got a free rewind, and then I somehow copied that rewind. So I had like 4 or 5 malfunctions, and aggro Paladin doesn't really like to face that, as it turns out.
Yeah. Pops the shields, kills all the 1/1s. This is pretty rough.
It was pretty rough.
It turns out the back half of Bellowing Flames over and over again for 2 mana is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun. But how about you, Wicked?
Well, I have basically destroyed my office this week because I have gotten myself into some projects with my Magic cards. I ended up in the part of my Commander journey where I ended up spending money on singles this weekend.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't that bad. It was mostly lands that were the big expenditures, because like a lot of the other cards were cheap. It was like a couple of the dual lands that were kind of pricey, but I knew that they were going to be pricey and it was okay. But Maureen had gotten me like a while ago, had gotten me like this box to keep my cards in, and I just never started using it. And she was like, "Are you ever going to use that?" And I said, "Okay, well, I have all my commons, and my commons are more than fit in the box." But I said, "Okay, I really only need to keep like 4 of each. So I can go through and start like cutting down my commons and like put the 4 that I'm keeping in this fancy box. It's got like a lock on it. It's got, like velvet padding or whatever. It's a really nice box, and to keep the stuff in. And then everything else will go in the cardboard box. I can eventually put those in the basement, or maybe I figure out how to get rid of my bulk cards, whatever." And then I started logging them in all in deck box and found that some of them are worth money. And I'm like, okay, well now it's a project. So it's like I've just found like I have like 18 copies of this card Pyroblast from Ice Age that all go for like $5 a piece on TCG Player.
Yep.
It would be
It's a
even
good
more
one.
perfect if it went for 10.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it would be, but it doesn't do nearly the same thing in Magic as it does in Hearthstone.
No.
But it was
It's
just like
counters a blue spell or something.
yeah, or destroys a blue permanent, I think.
Yeah.
I get that confused with Red Elemental Blast, which I also have about 1 million of, which are also going for like $3 a piece. So now I've got
Legacy.
like I have bought like a pack of like 400 perfect fit sleeves. I've used up most of them. Like redoing all my binders and everything, like looking for things that, I mean, and like when it's $1 or $2, but you have like 10 or 12 or 14 of them,
Yeah.
then it's easier to part with them when I have 10 or 12 or 14 of them, because I still have, it's not like the rares where like I have some old like revised dual lands that I could sell for like a lot of money, but also I can't bring myself to part with them. But like when I've got 14 copies of Pyroblast, like what am I doing with 14 copies of Pyroblast? Right. So I just have to figure out like how I sell them and not get, ripped off in the process. But I've been basically tearing apart my whole collection and like redoing it. And that's been my special project this week. But I have found some time for Hearthstone. I ended up playing a bunch of Reno Priest this weekend, and that was actually working for me. To kind of climb out of the hole that I dug for myself, because I was in kind of the I hate everything about this meta, nothing's working, and then I started playing some Reno Priest. I must have had a quest or something, and it was working, and so I just kept playing that until the mini set dropped, and I've been trying a few things. I tried the Lightshow Mage, but I queued into like the 2 people who are still playing Highlander Warrior back to back.
There's a
While playing.
surprising number still playing Highlander Warrior, and they're
Yes.
kind of not wrong is the scary part. But anyway, yes.
Well,
Yeah.
but they don't do the brand things as quickly, right? Like,
Yes.
I think it shows that the deck can just win by being a control warrior, right? And they run Dorian now, which sometimes that comes out at 4, and then you're like, I can't deal with that. And then they play what is it? Oh, the guy ringing the bell, Town Crier.
Town Crier. Oh, and just draw all their.
Or even worse, they top deck a Town Crier. So then they play 2 Town Criers.
And then you become a crier.
Yeah, well, because it means they have, double of the drill that excavates and of Ziliax.
Yeah. They sure do. Yeah. But it turns out when you're playing Lightshow Mage against them, it doesn't matter because as long as they gain armor, then that's pretty much all that matters because you just don't have enough burn.
Deck. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's not our favorite matchup as the mage.
yeah. But then we were talking about things this morning. Magesa says, oh, by the way, World 8 saying that Reno Priest is like tier 2 in top legend now. And I'm like, okay. Admirable was sending me IMs yesterday and that he'd found a Reno Priest. And I just kind of was like, okay, but I'm not getting fooled again. Like I want to believe, but it's just like, okay, whatever. But I played a few games with it. I am still learning it. I got wiped out by a rogue that had like 4 8/8s on turn 5, which is Galakron Shaman ++, I guess. But I had I played a mirror right before the show, which is very dumb. It is a very dumb mirror.
Yeah.
Because you run 1 copy of Puppet Theater in the deck and another copy of Puppet Theater in ETC, and you have Madame Lazul and you have Creation Protocol and Power Chord Synchronize. And we both had played 3 Puppet Theaters over the course of the game, and they had gotten rid of a couple of mine with Reno. I'd held one back knowing that the Reno was coming. And I got to a point where it's like, well, I wish I could find my Reno so I could play minions because I had 2 Amenthals stuck in my hand that I could not play because they had 2 Puppet Theaters out. And eventually I just got to the point where I just said, okay, fine. I Creation Protocoled. Screw it. I'm taking Baleful Bankers. We're going to Fatigue now. And I just like started playing Baleful Bankers with Quick Draw. And then they started copying my Baleful Bankers and playing them with Quick Draw. And then I copied their copies.
And you still didn't find Reno.
And still didn't find Reno, but they did find a gyro worm and killed me. So that was how that ended. That was less fun, but it was silly. I don't know if that's correct or not what I was doing, but the correct thing would have been to draw Reno. That would have been the correct thing to do. But I did play it against the Hunter after that and basically cleared all their stuff forever. And then they eventually just ran out of stuff and conceded. So that seemed better. It felt okay. Like when I wasn't getting blown out by turn 5 8/8s and I couldn't find my Shadow Word Ruin. And I think in that game, I was actually, in retrospect, I was being greedy because I had the option to grab a Baleful Banker out of my deck. And I chose to pull an Elise instead because I thought I was going to have time. And I did not have time. And if I realized that was, I knew what they were doing because I'd already played like the 1/2 Undead to get a copy of a card from their deck. And it was something that told me it was Playhouse Giants. But, even then I was kind of like, oh, I don't need to worry about that. And then, oh no, I did. I needed to find the ruin because that was my only answer. So, but I'm looking forward to trying that more this weekend. And hopefully I will not end up, tilting off the planet while I'm doing it on stream tomorrow, because that's probably what I'm playing on stream tomorrow, but that's tomorrow. And we have some news, and then we have some decks that we want to talk about that you could try playing if you're trying to figure out what to do in this meta. But let's start out by talking about the news.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
So we did, of course, get patch 29.4 this week with Dr. Boom's Incredible Inventions. We don't need to talk about that because you already know, because you're most likely playing with it already. But it is, if you have not yet gotten it, it is in the shop, $15.99 or $14.99 or 2,000 gold, $14.99 USD or 2,000 gold, or the golden version, $69.99 or 10,000 gold. So that's available. The news that we didn't know last week is that we were getting 2 balance changes. We knew we were getting balance changes, I think, in this patch, but we didn't know what they would be. So the 2 balance changes that we got are Deep Miner Bran went from 6 mana to 8 mana, and Saddle Up went from 3 mana to 4 mana. And the dev comment for these is, our last balance update was a massive shakeup with over 35 changes based on our general design philosophy and overall health of standard. With so many changes at once, we built this extra balance window into this content patch to catch a couple of power and play rate outliers that have cropped up since those changes. We still have our regular hotfix balance window planned for a little after this patch, once players have had a chance to play with the new mini set cards and explore the new meta. So, as I said, there are still people playing Highlander Warrior. It is slower. I have noticed that the Excavate Warrior that I was playing got significantly worse because you discover 8 drops, and one of them is sometimes a 2/4 with the Azurai box. That was something I didn't quite think about.
Yep.
But I mean, it does seem to have brought the play rate of Highlander Warrior down, even if it doesn't necessarily, even if it's still a playable deck. And I mean, that's a good nerf when that happens. But what are your thoughts on that?
Definitely seen a couple. Like, Bran is the kind of card that it's so powerful, you just need to find a moment to get it down. And it was just too easy to get down at 6 mana. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good change, and I like that the deck isn't completely dead because it had other stuff going on. Like, it could still do powerful things without Bran. It just felt like there was very little counterplay to trying to prevent Bran. Like,
Yeah.
you can get more pressure going for their 8 mana turn than sometimes for their 6 or 5 if they're on coin.
When I was playing Handbuff, I definitely found I could do that. Just keep making big boards, keep the pressure on, and then in one game they did play Bran on 9, I think, anyway. And I'm like, all right, charge, you're dead. Right? They didn't gain armor. And, they were kind of in a situation where they had to get it down at some point, so they took a risk. It wasn't necessarily a misplay, but it was something that would have been much harder to take advantage of. It's still, so on HSR at Diamond through Legend, it is at 52%. In Legend and top 1K, it's more like 53%. Both of those. So, and that actually, almost 54% at top 1K. So that puts it just below. It puts it on a. It's interesting what's tier 1 at top 1K on HSR. It's Highlander Paladin, Highlander Warrior, what they're calling Burn Shaman, which I guess is basically what you're playing.
Yeah.
And Flood Paladin, followed closely by Pain Warlock, Reno Priest. And Sonya Rogue actually goes positive up there because it's a very difficult deck to play.
Because of Pocket Train, basically.
Basically. Just skews the whole thing. Yes. So I think it's not only playable, but like a good deck still. So if you really did not like seeing Highlander Warriors, unfortunately you may still see them, but a lot less. Definitely a lot less. And if you did like playing Highlander Warrior, it is still an option, kind of like Reno Priest, which is still quite strong. Arguably strong enough that it might get hit again. We'll have to see. But definitely, it can still have blowouts, but it isn't going to get that one particular blowout as fast as it used to. So same with the Warrior. But sometimes they don't even need Bran. They can just make a lot of stuff or gain a lot of armor and then be like, kill me now, Lightshow Mage. So.
But crucially, the play rate has gone from 20 some odd % to 5% at Legend and 7 to 8% at Diamond 1 and 2. So that's still better, right? Like even if it's playable but it's not played as much, that's still a good thing, just because that play pattern can be, it's fine in moderation, but when you're seeing that a lot, there's a lot of decks that just don't have a way to get around that. And so getting the play rate of that deck down is still a good thing, and it did what was intended. Same thing with Spell Token Hunter. That is down to 4% at Legend and 6 to 7% at Diamond 1 and 2. So
probably the Warrior is in part doing well because it's feeding on the Lightshow Mage, which especially at higher Legend where the Warrior is doing better is just really popular right now because I think it's really fun. People want to play it. Yeah. So that's helping its win rate for sure.
Yeah. And that is 15% at Legend, by the way. 15.5 over the last day. And it's like 12 to 13 at Diamond 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3. So yeah, that's for all those people. I guess I got at least one right in our superlatives last week when I said that Malfunction was underrated. So
yeah,
there we go. So that's there. As also in this patch, we got an announcement about the upcoming Twist season, which is called Whizbang's Heroes. In Whizbang's Heroes, choose from exciting new heroes, each with their own pre-constructed deck, hero power, and unique passive effect. So the example they give us is Archvillain Rafam, whose hero power is called I Think I Will Take It, which is 1 mana, discover a spell from your opponent's class that costs 3 or less. And then he has a passive effect called Behold My Stuff. Your legendary cards cost 1 less. So each hero is unlocked if you have their corresponding legendary card, the first appearance card with the same name as the hero, except by Illidan, because he doesn't have, well, I guess he does have a card in Legacy, but they're not going to gate it behind that. He's unlocked by Metamorphosis in Core. So there will be 19 hero options: Illidan, Alakir, Archvillain Rafam, Leroy Jenkins, Kael'thas Sunstrider, Cthulhu, Nozdormu, the Lich King, Zyrella, Patches the Pirate, Sir Finley Murgleton, King Crush, Forest Warden Omu, Dr. Boom, Zul'jin, N'Zoth the Corruptor, Bran Bronzebeard, Guff Runetotem, and Arthas. And 4 of those cards are unlocked in Core, so they'll be automatically unlocked for all players at the start of the season. Kael'thas and Cthulhu were free login rewards for older expansions. So Cthulhu is automatically unlocked by having a Whispers of the Old God pack and going to the pack opening screen. And Kael'thas is similarly unlocked by having an Ashes of Outland pack and going to the pack opening screen, if you are wondering how to get those. So you might have to spend a couple 100 gold to unlock those characters if you want to. You might have to craft some things otherwise. It's an interesting tact for Twists, I think, which was pitched as a place to brew and having a season of only pre-constructed decks. I don't know quite. I have kind of mixed emotions about that. I think that the idea is really cool, but also I'm hoping that this doesn't get old too fast, just given that you always know what you're playing against, right?
Yeah, so I think one thing is, I don't know that they said place to brew so much as your old cards will be, there'll be more stuff to do with them, right?
Which this is technically true.
Right, it's based on, like, if you have this legendary, then you unlock, so it's still applying that. I think some of this is probably a response to people being so annoyed about the cost of investing in Twist, right? That they were just like, well, but why would I spend all this money for the Twist format when it's just going to change next month? And so this might be seeing if more people will engage when it's just have a legendary to unlock these decks, and some of them are in Core, so everyone will have them. So it's a little bit easier to try out.
This is also, I think, easier to try out in that you don't have to be tuned in to know how to build a deck for it. So the upside to it's not so much for brewers is that, kind of the thing that I wished that I had with duels more often. There's, if you don't engage with the mode that often, then you come to it and you're like, what the heck do I play? It's hard to keep up with multiple modes, what's good in them. So this allows you to just kind of pick up Twist, because all you need is to pick one of these decks. There's at least 4 options for you. And hopefully it doesn't get down to just like, there's like one deck that is clearly the best one, like it's all Archvillain Reform or whatever. But it's true in other Twist seasons that there was usually a relatively small number of decks that were popularly known about and good. So I don't know that this will necessarily have a smaller pool. And it also seems like, at least from this particular one, which it is Reform, so that kind of goes with him, but there's a little bit of a random effect. So that'll hopefully make the games feel more different, possibly frustrating if a lot of them are like that and you don't like playing against random effects. But I think I'm definitely curious to see how it works. And I think, if they have a balance between ones that are more for brewing, but also trying to get people invested who maybe are not as interested in the deck building aspect of Twist, which, it was pretty small numbers, especially at Legend in Twist.
So yeah, that'll be starting beginning of June. So June 1st, it will start. So it'll be interesting to see what the reception is, and hopefully the one thing that hopefully this will do is keep the queue times down if it's more accessible, because that's generally been the problem with Twist in some of these prior seasons, is that it's just impossible to get a game at a certain point if you climb ladder significantly. Like once you start getting to like 10x, 11x, it's almost impossible to find a game without waiting several minutes at Legend. So hopefully that'll help out there. But we will see. But we also have arena updates. So there is a new arena season that started with this patch. The arena rules and draft pools are the same, except for the cards from Dr. Boom's Incredible Inventions are added to the pool. However, the random generation and discover pools will be updated to only include cards from Ashes of Outland onward. So they're bringing the size of the discover pools down a bit, because with all of the cards being in the pool, then, or all the sets being in the pool, technically, then I don't know if it was limited to what was in the draft pool, or if it was limited to, or just like wide open everything in those sets, but that will bring the size of those discover pools down a little bit, and kind of make it so that you're not getting some of the older cards that are either really, really good or really, really bad in arena. So that'll be an interesting change. We are getting an in-game event starting on May 21st, which is Tuesday. So that is Dr. Boom's Isle of Mischievous Toys. There will be 4 sets of rewards on the track. It is 1 Whizbangs Workshop pack, and then 2 Whizbangs Workshop packs, and then 3 Whizbang Workshops packs, and then the Thunder Ape Shaman hero skin, which again, I hope that there is rich lore around Thunder Ape in WoW, but I am not familiar with it. But that is one other thing that you can do. So look out for that, and you'll hopefully they've been doing better with tuning these events the last couple times around. So it'll be good to see what they're able to do with that. And then we got some bug fixes and game improvements in this patch. Some of them are fairly significant. There is a note that there are not changes to the weekly quests in this patch, but they are planned for the next scheduled client patch, which is 29.4.2. That is sometime between now. That might be the next balance patch, I think, because
I think so.
The patch that has the shop update for the next expansion announcement should be 29.6. So we can expect some changes to weekly quests in probably about a week from when you're hearing this. So the changes that we got that are relevant, we're not going to go through all of them because there's a lot and not all of them are really relevant, but they updated Fizzle, which now loads the snapshot in the order that you see it in your hand rather than in timestamp order, which means that if you got a mini, they will get loaded into the snapshot where they were in your hand, not at the end, because the cards from when you have a mini or a twin spell, even though they came into your hand later, they get put into that same position. And this is relevant for when you're getting a big snapshot and you have not enough space for all of the cards to enter your hand. This will control how which cards go into your hand and which cards are just burned. So that's an important change to be aware of. I would imagine that, there are certain decks that run minis and that where this is actually relevant a non-trivial amount of the time. They fixed, I didn't realize that this was a bug, but apparently it is. There was a bug that Headless Horseman unfroze when you drew the head. And
I didn't know that was a bug either. Yeah.
I thought that was a feature. So that is apparently a bug, and they have fixed that. So now when you draw the head, you will no longer unfreeze. They say finding your head is nice, but your body's still on ice.
You'll still unfreeze when you play the first Headless Horseman himself, I assume.
Yes,
like
when
other
you play
heroes.
the hero,
Yeah.
it will unfreeze you because your hero is changing. But also, apparently, like when you draw the head, it was changing the hero power, but not the hero, and that was still unfreezing you, but it shouldn't have been. So that is no longer the case. So don't turbo draw for the head if you just go discover another Headless Horseman, which is what that deck typically does anyway. They fixed a bug where cosplay contestant cosplaying as Magtheridon Unleashed would trigger its dormant effect twice each turn. That's not canon.
Oh gosh, the salt of the person facing that.
I mean, just the fact that they had, that must have come off of some sort of like a Discover a 3-drop effect anyway. And then that's what happened. Like, yeah, I can only imagine. They fixed the bug where Spirit of the Badlands' Badlands can create an extra fake Mirage in hand, which was a bit too immersive. And they finally fixed the bug where Mac clients could not access the shop.
Yay.
So, which is becoming increasingly annoying over the course of the last month. So I am glad that they finally fixed it.
I came in Tuesday morning going, am I going to be able to do this? And then I was like, yep, okay, I don't have to bring out the phone again. I'm sure that was a big priority for them because you're just a lot less likely to buy something if it's another step to get into the shop. So,
yeah. And there wasn't any notice. Like Maureen said to me, like in passing, like maybe like a few days or a week ago, like, is the shop just down? And I'm like, oh no, it's broken on the Mac. Like, just go use your phone if you need to go to get something. I think she was going to get the Tavern Pass for Battlegrounds or something.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I can't get at the shop. Like, is it ever coming up? I'm like, yeah, in the next patch. But there's no way to know unless you're like reading the patch notes or reading the known issues, right? So, or listening to a show like Concede, which is why you're here. So we also, as always with a large patch, we have some known issues. There was Blazing Transmutation was, I believe, causing crashes. That's in wild only. So that was banned, and now that's been unbanned. We had said last week that Sock Puppet Slither Spear wasn't supposed to gain attack from weapons, and apparently that's a bug because it's on the known issues list as Sock Puppet Slither Spear doesn't gain attack from weapons, which implies that it should gain attack from weapons.
Cool.
Yeah, Hat said that. So he had tested it and thought that was correct. It doesn't gain attack from weapons, but in fact, it is supposed to gain attack from weapons, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
That's going to be a good card.
I mean, that's how I expected it to work, and I was surprised when I was told, oh no, it doesn't work that way. But it also means, obviously it's better in general, but it's better specifically in the terms of you have a weapon equipped, so it will have attack on the opponent's turn.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Do you have that attack on your opponent's turn? Because you still don't.
I think so. Maybe not.
Oh.
Okay.
Because
like
you sheath your weapon.
Oh, you do.
Yeah, because like if you're get attacked into, right, like you don't do damage back.
That is
so
annoying.
I don't know if you do have the attack on your opponent.
I would like for it to count, but maybe you're right that it doesn't. Yeah. It just seems weird that like one Slither Spear can have more attack on the opponent's turn and the other one can't. But whatever.
Well, they are all individuals, so shouldn't hold it to the other Slither Spear standards. They're investigating reports that Boom Wrench might be causing client freezes, but it appears that the freeze is only for some devices and it's brief. So if you do get a freeze after playing a Boom Wrench, then just wait it out and it should come back. And auras, sigils, and other persistent effects don't stack when they should if replayed by cards like Jotun or Tess. And because this affects Thief Rogue, I think this is fine. They don't need to fix it. But that's neither here nor there. And also when hit with a wave of nostalgia, Malygos gets a bit too caught up in the moment and cosplays in random minion art, which is hilarious. So I don't even know what that means, but I guess maybe you're just seeing art with Malygos's text. I don't know. That's very interesting. So that's kind of there are other known issues. We'll have a link in the show notes if you want to go check that out. If you're seeing something weird, it is always good to check the known issues to see if it's just you, or if it's something that is being fixed. So we did get some fairly amazing shop updates this week, and we have some even more amazing shop updates coming. Because what's not in here is Squirrel Illyria that Ben Hearthstone has been tweeting about nonstop for the past 3 days. And and by the way, in case you are wondering, yes, the WoW for that portrait is That's Nuts. Yes, that is exactly what the WoW is. So that is not in the client yet, but that is probably going to be an insta buy, even though it's another hunter skin. I hate that they're making me buy hunter skins between that and King Crush. But we did get Arthas for Death Knight, who is a very good boy. And
I picked that up. Like that was my.
He just barks a lot. He barks and howls, and he's delightful. And also we got Cat Hedonis for Priest, which I have not yet bought, but I think I probably need to.
I probably will, just because it's a cat and it's Priest, and I'm like a Priest person, and also my avatar is my cat. I unsurprisingly like cats, so, and it's pretty cute.
What one might say that you could find that it's perfect.
Oh gosh,
you've got to roll the R if you're gonna do that.
I can't though. That's the problem. So you're just gonna have to imagine it's theater of the mind.
Uh-huh.
But Cat Hedonis has some excellent voice lines as well, and also he is a cat. So that is something that is so Arthas is 1,500 runestones or $14.99 USD, and comes with 5 Demon Hunter packs and a card back. Cat Hedonis is 1,000 runestones or $9.99 USD, and just comes with the 5 priest packs. There are also some returning portraits for gold or $6.99 USD. We have House of Rituals Gul'dan, Forge Rock Garrosh, which is one of the mech portraits that they've been bringing back, and Garden Party Valera and Apprentice Jaina. So Garden Party Valera is one of the better rogue skins. I'm saying this as a noted rogue hater, but that is one of the better rogue skins. She's sitting there with a dagger in one hand and a glass of wine in the other. Apprentice Jaina is fine. If you like Jaina, then it's a good skin, but there have been better mage skins, but Garden Party Valera is one of the better rogue skins. And of course, if you're into collecting the mech skins, then you should be looking at Garrosh. But that's about it for news. So why don't we go start talking about some decks?
All right, so for today, we didn't have like one deck that we felt, especially 2 days into a mini set, that we wanted to do a full explanations for, but we also didn't want to just mention the names of a bunch of decks and not have a chance to talk about them. So while we will do a little bit of that at the end, and we have some links to places you can find decks, we wanted to each kind of pick 1 or 2 decks to do a very like mini deck explanations for. Hopefully, this is me getting myself prepared to do a mini Decksplanations instead of a long one. And so we have 4 decks here. All of the decks are in the show notes. So they are Handbuff Paladin, Lightshow Mage, because that's what I've been playing, Edel's Good Shaman, and the Reno Priest that Steve mentioned. So all these were decks that we mentioned in Life on Ladder. And I guess I will start with Handbuff Paladin. So the elevator pitch for this deck is that you're making big dudes, and even more big dudes. You also have some charge damage, and sometimes in certain matchups that's really important. But I found that I was often winning with the charge damage, but rarely with only the charge damage. So you count that, you keep it in mind for lethal. I definitely had a game or two where I went, wait a minute, I would get this great keeper strength clear that was totally unnecessary because I had a Leroy that was big enough. So, keeping track of how big are these minions going to be in a turn or two when I need them for damage. Also, do be aware with the South Sea deckhands that people are running Vipers. Like, warriors are running Vipers. A lot of Highlander decks are out there, and they're running Vipers. So you can't plan necessarily on your weapon surviving. And also, make sure that if you have a deckhand, you swing after you attack with the deckhand, which is easy to forget because almost every other time you attack first and then play stuff, so the ordering can get a little tricky. I switched to a list that's playing Ignis, and that is nice because the 1-mana weapon can give you another way to clear things, or you can get some extra reach in a different, in a longer matchup. And crucially, it gives you another weapon for those South Sea deckhands, which is sometimes really nice. You can actually fully buff them up with the Painter's Virtue so that you can then but then you can use the Ignis weapon to still attack with the South Sea deckhands if you're in a longer game where you need that reach against, say, a warrior. So other games, if it's against something, so the list that I have ended on here has for draw Gold Panners and Astral Serpents. And I've also seen some versions, World 8 had a version with Hi-Ho Silverwing to try to draw that Keeper's Strength. If you're running into a lot of aggro, that might be a good choice for you. I have seen Acolyte of Pain, but less so lately because it can get a little too much if you buff that up.
Told you. I told you. I don't like giving control of my draw to the opponent.
Never go full Northshire.
Like when you're going to play Acolyte of Pain and it only has 4 health, it's like, boo-hoo, if my opponent burns a card of mine, I still drew 3 cards, right? When it could have like 10 health, it starts getting a little...
Let me clear your minions in Bladestorm. Yeah, it gets...
Yeah. You also, of course, have Magesa because your only spell is Keeper Strength. Do be aware if you give them a Keeper Strength and they have any big minions, they can clear your giant board. So just remember that you gave it to them and they have it, and maybe try to bait it out or win with charge damage. But Magesa is still absolutely worth playing, and we only have 2 spells, so this is the most times I've ever played Magesa and not given my opponent a spell. So that actually works pretty well.
Unlike every time that I play it in Reno Priest and give them both power word synchronizes. Every single time.
Unless they would benefit more from funnel cakes, and then you give them those.
Yes.
Yes. And then of course it's running a lot of the things that they're all running. So your Grimestreet Outfitters, your Muscleotrons, Outfit Tailor, which is basically charge damage. Although using an Outfit Tailor, you can also use it on one of your rushing lifesteal minions. So you've got Tigress Plushie, which is still a totally good card. And the version that I have here also runs Audio Medic, which is 2 mana, 2/3 finale or rush finale gain lifesteal. And you buff that up, and it's kind of another Tigress Plushie. It's worse, but it's cheaper. So it works out. And that, because you're a hand buff deck, you can be a little slow off the ground. And so having a way to retake board with lifesteal is really important. Outfit Tailor in a pinch can give you a bigger lifesteal minion, although usually you're using it either on something that's stuck or on a charge minion for that final damage. But don't be afraid to use it for board control. Amethyst, obviously, is amazing. Don't forget she can draw if you've just whiffed on your draw. She can draw most things you're not terribly upset to get small versions of, actually. Leroy's a bit of a bad hit, but otherwise, it's actually pretty fine. And then, of course, she can buff for a little bit of a bloodlust effect, or she can make your opponent's minion small, and she's really good at protecting if, they've already used their brawl and they're not about to Reno or something. A lot of decks can't get through the Amethyst easily, so you've made a giant board, and then you Amethyst, and then they, cannot clear is pretty common. So you want to think about what types of clears that they have. And yeah, was there anything else that I wanted to say here? A Keeper Strength is definitely a key card in aggro matchups, so you might want to be just slightly greedy with it because you don't have very many of them. You only have 2, you might not draw the second one, and so keep in mind how you want to use those, but it can be a very powerful clear, or it's very, very important in the mirror. You want to be the second person to keep your strength in the mirror, basically. You want to force them to use theirs and then counter when they build up their board. So yeah, I've really been enjoying this deck. It's pretty similar if you played this deck before. It's pretty similar to how it was before. There's different ways you can build the Ziliax. The version I have here is perfect ticking. I've also seen twin power, because if they can't clear, then you just do 30 damage to them. So it depends on what you're facing. You can customize that however you would like, basically, as is the spirit of Ziliax. I would absolutely recommend this deck, but we have some breaking news.
Yeah. So we literally just minutes ago got a new server-side update, 29.4.1. There's a lot of Battlegrounds armor changes, but the main things that it's fixing, there were some bugs where some players were having issues with daily quest rollovers and updates. Those are fixed. There are a couple of very weird bugs with the Replicatorinator, where it would summon a copy of a magnetic minion that was being magnetized, and it didn't work with cards that changed a minion's attack as it was played, like the Crystal Cove. So now it will be applying those effects first, and then the Replicatorinator will check to see if it should copy the minion or not. Sock Puppet Slither Spear is now gaining the attack from weapons, and Gigantic Toy Snatching Geist was able to discover itself, so that's not a thing anymore. And apparently drawing Headless Horseman's head doubled the amount of health gain from the Primus's Runes of Blood ability.
Huh.
So that doesn't happen anymore, and I'm very glad, because that sounds terrible. If you're well, I mean, it sounds great if it's on your side, and it's probably really bad if it's on the other side. So that's there. So if you want to play your sock puppet Slither Spear, first of all, you have to be able to say it, which is apparently very difficult. And now you can play it with weapons. So, but now back to our regularly scheduled programming.
I will say one last thing about Handbuff Paladin, which is I forgot to give the mulligan. Basically, you need the weapon. If you have both the weapon and the tech, you actually want the tech to draw the weapon, because that's an extra draw, basically. And Panner is also good. Conditionally, Righteous Protector, Audio Medic if you're going to need that against a board-based matchup, or Deckhand if it's a greedy long matchup and you want to give the maximum possible buffs to Deckhand. Outfitter and Muscletron are common keeps, but more mediocre, so I might not keep them if you're really looking for the weapon, but otherwise, feel free, or if it seems like it works with your hand or against your opponent. And most other things I would toss. So that is the end of Handbuff Pally, but Edel, why don't you explain a little bit more about how your Good Shaman works and what is in it? And we do this time, everyone, have the deck list in the show notes for real.
It's not just a tease this time.
Yeah. So This is built as like just a play for tempo kind of deck. I mean, you should do that most times, but that's what the deck
Speak
is
for
about.
yourself.
So largely you keep one drops. We've got Novice Zapper, Murloc Grofin, and Shock Hopper. And if you have like a jam session or a trusty companion, keeping pop-up book as a 1-drop is also kind of fine. Particularly like if you're on the draw and they might be playing like a snake oil salesman or a flame imp or something, right? Like I've found with all the pain locks out recently, keeping pop-up book against them is usually pretty good. Blood Treant is another 2/2 to kill. So, and you kind of just want a minion on 1 so that you can jam session or trusty companion on 2. That's the optimal curve. And Flow Rider, I don't really keep unless I have specifically Novice Zapper. That's sort of one of the conditional keeps. And where it gets a little awkward is like Turn the Tides is the best turn 3 play, but we have a lot of turn 4s. So if you can help it, like try not to overload on 3 so that you can play either Pozic or Backstage Bouncer or Sand Art Elemental on 4. All of them are solid. Yeah, the reason Backstage Bouncer is so good in this deck is because it's paired with things like Pop-Up Book, Shock Hopper, Murloc Grofin. So even if you can't do it on 4 right away, usually on 5 you can throw out one of those 1-drops and then transform it into a 4/5. You just have a pair of 4/5 taunts, which when you can get those down very early, it's a lot of stats for people to deal with. Like they usually struggle with that.
I'm happy to see that card in a deck because I always thought that was a strong card. You'd see it occasionally, but it's a good card and it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this deck needs more frogs, though, I think is the problem. It doesn't have quite enough frogs.
I experimented with other versions, one that was more overload focused with the big 5-cost 10/10 frog, and one that was more menagerie about like buffing the Murloc Grofin. And those were, had their interesting and fun bits, but I think were just not quite as smooth as this one that's sort of in between. And sometimes you get the 5-mana 10/10 rush off of Shock Hopper now anyways. So that's always nice. It definitely killed someone because I was able to play that with Overdraft, of which we have 2 copies. And that was a pretty fun lethal. But yeah, turn 4 is where you often have these. I guess Backstage Bouncer is like the big stat play, but the other ones are just like usually enough if you've had that start of like the ones into Jam Session or Trusty Companion. You want to get on the board early and fast so that you can kind of just snowball with your 4s. And Sand Art Elemental is really great for like clearing up little things. So if a bunch of annoying stuff sort of did value trades or you weakened things up with Jam Session, Sand Art Elemental is great for cleaning up any remaining 1 health things. Don't be afraid to like take significant damage to your face if it means preserving your board. Mostly the 4-mana Sand Art Elemental is just to set up for having a 1-mana 1 in your hand, because the 1-mana 1 is what you're going to be comboing with Turn the Tides. This is another reason why, if you can help it, you don't want to Turn the Tides on 3, because saving it for burst damage later on is quite significant. And then, of course, we have Jive Insect, which we've got a bunch of little 1-cost things. Worst case, you can totem with it, but Pop-Up Book is very, very good. Oftentimes it'll be like you use one of the frogs for Backstage Bouncer, and then they've spent all their effort cleaning up the 4/5s, and left the frog, and so you get to jive the other frog. Stuff like that can happen. And we top off the deck with Golganeth and the new addition of Shutterblock, because used to be there wasn't much worth shutter blocking in the deck, but now with Murloc Growfin, you get to cosplay as Galakron Shaman, because the gigantified version, will summon copies of itself with Rush, and so if you can shutter block going into that turn 8, then you'll get 3 8/8s with Rush in addition to the main 8/8 body. So that's the biggest reason that Shutterblock is in there, but sometimes you also do it with the 1-cost Sand Dart Elemental, so that is 6 attack, basically, because the 3 twice. You can do it with Shock Hopper if you need resources, just get a bunch of Overload cards, or, Flow Rider to draw 3 things and try and set up a sort of scuffed Nature Shaman pop-off if you've got like a Novice Zapper in hand and, want to find your Lightning Reflexes and your Lightning Bolts and that kind of stuff. Lightning Reflexes is not like a strictly combo card in this deck. We don't have any way of reducing the cost of nature spells. It's very hard to play a Crash if we find it. It's mostly just a toolbox card, because sometimes you need a clear or you need some healing. And so it can find you that stuff. And, I've had games where it crucially found me the 7 mana Shaman clear that makes a 6/6, right? Giant Tumbleweed. And that was really good. So it's just sort of there. You want to familiarize yourself with what you can hit in the Shaman spells, so that you know what you're looking for. And similarly, so that if you don't hit it on the first one, you're like, okay, well, how much mana can I afford to spend? What one of these options can I take to then maybe still find something useful on the next one? So that can be fun. The old list used to have like a 1-of conductivity, because sometimes you could get those silly conductivity jive turns, or like conductivity jam session can be really good as well. I don't have one naturally in the deck, but you can still like pick it up from Lightning Reflexes and do some of those silly things. But largely, yeah, it's just like fight for board early on and try and snowball early damage into a victory. I did have one game against a mage that I had strong early game, but then I played a Posic on 4 when I should have just played a Sand Dart Elemental, and then I never got the 4-cost Sand Dart Elemental down, and I was like just shy of damage later on. So like there are times where you need to recognize, they're gonna start running away with this. Posic felt pretty safe. They had a pretty nuts manufacturing draw into clear, so it maybe was a reasonable play, but usually a big decision point is like, okay, which one of these things am I doing on 4? And sometimes you just need to recognize when it's like, I have to start burning them out, or most importantly, I don't know when I'm going to be able to play the Sand Dart Elemental otherwise, and so making sure you get it down so you have the cheap one to sort of get the versatility of burn damage that way later on. It can be good. Yeah.
I am definitely excited to try this deck. I did face Edel playing this deck, and
I think I still
was
had
impressed by it. And I had actually tried to make a version of this deck like without looking, and didn't take it to ladder. That was the smart part of this whole operation. That what I put into it, like I think you came in and were spectating me and said, "Oh, if you draw Lightning Reflexes, you can have a really good turn here." And I thought, "Oh, I knew I forgot something."
Yep.
Didn't have that, so that's a good card to have, even if you don't have a discount for it. But all right, Wicked, why don't you tell us a little bit more about this Reno Priest?
Well, so if all of this tempo stuff just makes you feel like it's just not quite civilized enough for you, and you want a nice, good, old-fashioned Let the clays come to you control deck. That is what we have in Reno Priest. And it is it's benefiting both from a couple things. One is the fact that Highlander Warrior is a lot less played because you just could not beat Highlander Warrior with another control deck. Highlander Warrior would just outvalue you no matter what. It probably still will. Though you have a lot more time to Dirty Rat, and you have a Dirty Rat in the deck and a Dirty Rat in the ETC, so maybe you have more of a chance of hitting the brand. But regardless, that's one of the things. And also that the rest of the meta is a lot more tempo focused, and a lot of those decks tend to be able to run out of value, so you can kind of play an attrition game. We got a couple of new tools with Funhouse Mirror, which is the single target soul mirror, and of course Puppet Theater, which is the new location that gives you a 1/1 copy of an enemy minion. You run one of those in the deck and one of those in the ETC for control mirrors, because it's it's a very slow card against anything tempo based, but in a against a slower deck, you kind of need it. It's kind of like when we uh it's kind of like how the the plague spreader was before rotation, where like it was pretty much dead in any tempo matchup, but against another control deck you really 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 wanted it. That's kind of how Puppet Theater is also, because it just makes it very awkward for your opponent to play a minion without being able to clear it themselves. And you have to be a little bit careful what you're playing into it. Like I had Creation Protocol and had two Amenthuls and wasn't able to play either of them because I didn't want to give my opponent an Amenthul. So it is powerful in those matchups. I was probably a little bit too harsh about on my review of it last week, but I've got an appreciation for it while playing it. One of the things that I am like, this list it's got a lot of clears. You're running even things like Holy Smite, you're running Serenity, which is very good against things like a shaman or a hunter. Holy Nova is very good against a lot of the token based strategies, or like a Flood Paladin, something like that. You have a lot of powerful single target removal. The one thing that you don't have that I might want to change in this deck, given the prevalence of Lightshow Mage, if that stays, is you don't have a lot of burst healing, which is kind of one of the downfalls. I mean, Mage is sometimes a problem or for a control priest in general, just because you can't attrition out their burn. But this is also not running a lot of that. Like, it's running Fan Club, it's running Watcher of the Sun, but there's not really a whole lot else beyond that. I think there might be some room. I don't know if you need to main deck a Brushdraw Viper anymore. Like, that could probably be a the 2-mana bottle spell, Holy Spring Water, or it could be Twilight Torrent's actually a really interesting choice, which is, if you don't remember, and I don't blame you if you don't, 2-mana shadow spell that says choose a character. If it's friendly, restore 6 health. If it's an enemy, deal 3 damage. That could be kind of a flexible card that either gives you burst healing in the matchups where you need it, or gives you a little bit more removal in the matchups where you just need to be able to remove minions. So that's something that I'm looking at that might be a good inclusion, maybe over the Viper. But ultimately, what you're trying to do is you're trying to stall. You've got small clears in the early game. You ramp up to bigger clears with Nomelia, with Harmonic Pop. And then you have your top end is all the big minions. So you have Reno, obviously, for your main clear. You have Amenthul, you have Elise, you have Yogg-Saron, and you have Ziliax's Virus Perfect.
Which
so
I've
it's
been...
a 4/6. It's a 4/6 with all the keywords. So
that is such an impressive Ziliax when I have faced it.
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt, really, to deal with it, because it's just, you have to hit it 4 times and it's going to kill anything that it hits. So like, when you get it down, and ideally you want to get that off of Elise first, because then you have another one that you're able to work with. So that's a really, really good Ziliax. I don't think we were really using prior to this patch, but it feels like it's something I've been seeing prop up in a few different decks, and it's a really, really powerful powerful version of it, assuming that you have the 8 mana to be able to play it. But it does heal you, right? Because it still has the lifesteal from Perfect module. So it's going to heal you 16 if your opponent has to trade through it. Possibly more than 16 if they can't get rid of the front half. So that's a really good inclusion in the deck. You also have Shatterword Ruin, which is good for something like a Handbuff Paladin, or if you happen to draw it against like Playhouse Giants, stuff like that. So it's a lot more flexible, and I feel like the Funhouse Mirror and to a lesser extent the Puppet Theater are just good inclusions that are able to make it a little bit more flexible and have a little bit more game against a variety of decks. But also the decks that you're playing against are basically, they're targetable with a deck like this, right? Like you can play a deck like this because the meta has kind of come down in power enough after the last couple patches that you can play an attrition style deck like this. And then it's not really attrition because you just have a haymaker, a set of haymakers at the end that you can use to blow your opponent out. And of course you have Creation Protocol where you can get extra copies of them. You have Power Chord Synchronize, and then you can get 1/1 copies of your opponent's minions. So you have things that you can do. But ultimately against most of the decks, you're just trying to just remove everything and do it efficiently enough that they don't have refill.
Classic control deck. I'd say the control priest haters out there going, this is what happens when you nerf things. I do have sympathy for that, but Wicked the villain. It is in your name, Wicked.
I am happy. I'm happy playing that deck where I kind of felt a little bit lost for the past couple weeks. And I have, even though I haven't been winning as, all the games with it, I do feel like I'm back in my comfort zone playing a deck like that, which I mean, that's a style that hasn't, unless you wanted to play Highlander Warrior, which good luck playing the mirror. It's been hard to play a deck like that for a little while. So I'm hoping that that's going to be an actual fixture in the meta and I'm hoping it stays here so it doesn't get nerfed, right? Just to stay in that little sweet spot where I can play it, but I'm not gonna be playing a million mirrors and it doesn't get nerfed.
Yeah, this also sounds like something where the mirror being prevalent would keep things down. Hopefully. Yeah. Because that sounds ridiculous with the puppet theaters. All right. Well, I wanted to briefly also touch on Lightshow Mage, and this is something we might come back to more. So I only started playing this today, so that is my caveat for this. But I wanted to mention it because it's been really fun. It's clearly very popular. It's something that, especially if you're playing at higher ranks, but I think even all different parts of ladder, you're going to start seeing. And I don't know that it's there because it's like so amazing. I think it's just like we have a Lightshow Mage and you can win with this deck. So everyone's just like, heck yeah, we're playing this.
Lightshow Mage in quotes. It's Burn Mage.
It's a mage with light show in it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like
it takes advantage of the way that stargazing works with Lightshow now, right? Which is that it counts, right? So now there are other arcane spells. Malfunction is good enough that even though you don't want to hit it with stargazing, it's still great, and maybe you keep it in the mulligan to reduce odds of that.
And in a certain situation, you might play it specifically to get, if you're playing against an aggro deck, you might play it even early, specifically to get Malfunction or deal 12 to the minions.
Yeah.
Right.
But like getting a copy of either Glyph or Lightshow is great. It's basically like you try and play Lightshow when it's going to deal face damage because you have other things that are more reliable for clearing the board. And sometimes you just play it on 3 to make a 3/3 with your keyboard, right? We've got a keyboard deck again.
We've got a keyboard deck. That is your mulligan target.
Yeah.
By the way, like when you look at the mulligan stats, it's like plus 4.5% win rate for the keyboard. And then the like next two things were spot the difference and manufacturing error at like plus 2%.
Yep.
And then everything else was negative.
You the payoffs.
Want the keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was also like, that was one of the things that I did when I said I was being greedy against the Lightshow Mages. I had a Viper in hand and I didn't use it on 3 for some reason because there was something else I needed to do.
I don't
something else I want to do,
know.
I figured I'll just Viper it later. And like, no, I wasn't. I was never going to have the mana to Viper it after that. Like that was my only opportunity. And then they just had 4s and 5s because that's what it curves in. They, coin a 4 into into the
Manufacturing error.
the draw 3 card. Yeah. Manufacturing error, the draw 3 cards. So I sat there with the Viper in my hand because I was an idiot. And but that it does create a lot of, especially Spot the Difference. Again, Spot the Difference is kind of the new cold case as far as the weapon is concerned, where it's just getting you 2 bodies and then a 4/4. And that's a lot to deal with on 4, assuming that you don't already have a board that can just trade it off.
And I do recommend there are versions of this deck with Frostlich Cross Stitch as well. That is also a really good turn 4 with the keyboard. Because then if you have a target for it, you get a 3/6 Water Elemental and a 4/4, which is pretty good as well. And it can be a little bit of extra removal. So the version that I have here, cut 1 Heat Wave and 1 Reverb for 2 Cross Stitch. But there's lots of different ways that you can do that. This is also, by the way, a really cheap deck. It is all commons and rares, except for Primordial Glyph, which is in core. So it's not really an epic if you think about it. And there's no legendaries. There is a list running around with Infinitize the Maxitude.
I have thought about is there a way you can squeeze this in just so you're not completely screwed in longer matchups?
So that is an option if you have that. But if you don't have it, you can absolutely try this deck out without crafting it. And it's really, if you haven't had a chance to get the mini set yet, the only mini set card is important, but it's just Malfunction, and that's a rare. So if you don't have gold right now, but you really want to just craft a couple 100 dust for this, go for it. And this is also running Elemental Companion, a card we trashed so hard. I feel like
it was so hard. Like it was I mean, that card was basically useless for a good
It didn't have a home, right?
Yeah.
It didn't have a home. It turns out it's much better when either it costs 0 or the things you're playing with it cost 0 because of manufacturing error.
So, I mean, basically it's its number one function is a thing to play on 3 after Cosmic Keyboard, right? So it gets you 2 minions. And you don't.
It's also really likely to be able to let you stretch your burn. Because either it has a 2/3 chance of either giving you a discount, which can really let you pop off, or giving you extra spell damage. So you do want to, if you're playing this later in the game, make sure you do have some mana left over to do something. But it also can be good with that. And especially if it's free, just rip it. Right. But even if it's not, you have some free burn spells, just rip it, see what happens. But yes, it also is a great follow-up to keyboard on 3. So it actually is a pretty flexible card. I did win a mirror earlier today where I Elemental Companion first. I got the burn one. I got them down really low. Then they reverbed. They played their own Elemental Companion, which was the discount one. They reverbed that one to have double discount. And they reverbed my burn one.
Oh, no.
But they didn't quite. They were trying to draw for the last 2 points of damage and they couldn't find it. So then I killed them.
Oof.
I was I almost felt bad because that would have been quite the turnaround for them. I had been kind of the aggressor doing more burn damage the whole game, and they almost turned it around. This is really, it's not really a Lightshow deck, right? It's really a burn deck. It feels like Burn Shaman from 2 years ago. Not the Nature Shaman that was OTK-ish, but Burn Shaman with the objective and it lots of little damage spells.
The one that froze the board repeatedly.
No, even before that, there was a Burn Shaman that was just, and you had to, all of your stuff could be removal or could be damage face. This feels a little bit like that. I'm going to have to come back next week and have a list of what was in this deck. But if you just steady doing damage, you're trying to send as much as you can face. But if you're facing something like an aggro paladin, you might be able to you might focus a little bit more on the board before you send face, but most things you're just sending damage face, clearing as necessary, and manufacturing error can give you some nutty turns, or keyboard can give you some nutty turns, and those are kind of the spikes that are helping you. You also have a lot of discover between Primordial Glyph, Molten Rune. It's not discover, but it's generation. Void Scripture. You don't ever keep Void Scripture, and you usually try to play that with at least like 5 mana, so that if you get a secret, you can play it. But you can also just play, if you have nothing better to do on 2 than a hero power, like play Void Scripture, it's fine. And then you just have lots of burns. But just like, it's hardly Naga Mage levels of discover at all. But a little bit like that deck, you want to keep in mind what kind of things you want to be discovering. Maybe more like Rainbow Mage, except for you don't need to worry about spell schools. Keep in mind the kinds of things that you might want to discover to help you with your plan. So I almost picked something other than Rewind against that Paladin, where I ended up with 4 or 5 malfunctions, but then I realized, wait a minute, I'm facing a Paladin. And I have 2 malfunctions in my hand. What I need is survivability, and this is what's going to get me that. So yeah, it's definitely a fun deck if you are wanting a just sort of burn deck. This is a burn deck. It's not an OTK deck. If you want an OTK deck, we have a tweet here from Clark with Spell Damage Druid featuring Dorian. It's not consistent, but
yeah, high highs, but it's built around targeted draw, which means that the times when you draw your targets make it a lot more awkward to try and play. Basically, it functions around Oaken Summons pulls Dorian, which is the only minion it can pull. And once you've got Dorian in play, you use Pendant to draw Summerflower Child, which gives you a 1-mana Summerflower Child that you play to draw the Titan, ANR, and Aulonius. Those are the only minions in the deck. There's 4 minions. And since you get a 1-mana copy of ANR, you refresh your mana crystals and and are then able to play, potentially double Aulonius. Maybe you've got a location or 2 in play, and you do a bunch of burn. So
and then you wake up.
Yeah. So Clark showed winning on like turn 6 or something.
Yes.
It is built very well in terms of the targeted draw stuff, but in terms of just straight up having enough card draw, it's a little weak, because it basically is the evolving card, or the upgrading druid card that gives you armor and draws a Blossom, and Bottomless Toy Chest. And that's kind of it for card draw, unless you're using ANR's card draw thing. So, when you don't get the optimal pulls, you have to fumble around and be like, I guess instead of discounting, I'm going to just get 2 nature spells, off of the that choose one thing. And you can win that way. Things going a bit longer, but it's a little rockier. So I don't think we have to be terrified yet.
There was a moment when I saw this, when I was right to be scared of Dorian.
Oh, we're still scared of Dorian. Dorian's a good card.
Dorian's a good card.
Fortunately, all they have to do, if this becomes a problem, to make it not work, is just put Dorian to 5, and then it can't be Oaken summoned, and it's way less consistent.
So, but if you want to do an OTK and the inconsistency is fine with you,
and you don't want to spend 150 games learning Rogue.
Yes. Stuff Rogue. I'm going to call it Stuff Rogue. Stuff Rogue did get dubious purchase. I would say it's still dubious for most people who are not Tic Tac or Pocket Train, but it helped it quite a bit, I think. Just that one thing, because it gives you a way to deal with a big minion and draw 3 cards, which is, also pretty good. Drawing 3 cards. Those 2 things together. So I have not played any of this deck myself because I have no faith in myself. I do not have a growth mindset about Stuff Rogue and myself.
And if you want to try something completely insane, ask me for my Holy Forge deck.
Come to Discord.
I guess we just put it in the show notes now because people are going to ask. Edel, just put the code in show notes now. The other thing that I don't think we're going to go deep into it because it's not that different, but it got into a couple new things is Painlock.
Yep.
Infernal is apparently very good in the deck.
Infernal's the 4-mana 6/6 demon with taunt that sets your remaining health to 15. And then it also got Mass Production, which is the 1-mana spell that draws 2 cards, deals 3 damage to you, and then shuffles 2 copies of that into your deck. So you can keep hitting yourself repeatedly to be able to get your horrors and your Molten Giants out. So that is something that's been doing particularly well. Also, so it cut the forges. It's also running Sheriff Barrel Brim, which is kind of hilarious, but also makes sense. Which, if you forgot, is the 4-mana legendary, which says Battle Cry. If you have 20 or less health, open the Badlands Jail, which makes a opposing minion dormant for, I believe, 3 turns. So if you're already, punching yourself in the face and saying your health to 15, then you're going to be below 20. So you may as well just use that to get rid of a taunt and get rid of several taunts.
I think that is quite a strong deck. And then I've been seeing there's quite a few things in tier 2, especially if you do like a Diamond 3 Legend bracket. So, go to HSR, if you don't have HSR Premium, you can still, even if you do, Donkey's site, hsguru.com/meta or donkey.top, donkey with a 0 instead of an O. There's a meta tab there as well. You can find lots of decks. So there's a lot of things that you can do in this meta, and hope that you have a good time with it. And yes, the Holy Forge list is now at the bottom of the show notes. Buyer beware.
It's great. It's got Replicatorinator in there.
Oh, I have to try it now. It has Replicatorinator.
Because, yeah, you can use the 8/8 for copies of either Storm Giant or the Gigantified Flickering Lightbox. So, yeah, maybe I need to find a way to squeeze in, Celestial Projectionist as well. But for now,
sure, why not?
why not? Certainly got good board clears. Anyway, that's going to do it for our show. We have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at Concede.com. You can also find our contact info or show notes and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/CoinConcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at CoinConcede, as well as like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/CoinConcede. And if you'd like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Sorry, at coinconcede.creator-spring.com. Apparently our link has been broken for a while.
Well, hopefully we will fix that this weekend, but yes.
Yes. So one or the other, if you want, and we have plans for the shop, but TBD, we will let you know.
If you can't remember that, just go to coinconcede.com and there's a link to the shop on the CoinConcede homepage.
Yeah. Yes. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, Crash, Beef Squatch, David P., Walu, Jeremy T., Bottlecaps, Grumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kurt Regan, Forgiven One, Grizzly Bear, and Tyler Knife. CoinConcedes. I guess you're the one who has something written. So
I will start. So last week, I forgot to do a Mother's Day coin concede to Edelweiss, to my own mother, who is awesome and has been really supportive of everything, including Hearthstone. And just how much mothers do. So I'm belatedly coin concede to you, Edel, to my mom, and to all of the moms out there. Thank you for everything that you do. I also have a coin concede to Magesa Time for getting a Twitch partner. That's awesome.
Sweet.
Big step. So, and I've definitely enjoyed some decks from Magesa. So that's awesome to have that step.
Well, I will coin concede to Racy, who had his open heart surgery on Tuesday, I believe, because I was streaming and I raided into him on Monday night because he was streaming the night before his surgery, as one does.
Yeah, no, it's a good call. Yeah.
I haven't seen anything after that, so hopefully he's recovering and he's doing well. But thinking all the good thoughts for him. It sounds pretty scary what he's been going through. I mean, he's been going through this for forever, but it was definitely an escalation with the myocarditis, I think, that he has right now, or he's got some inflammation in the heart that they needed to address. So hopefully that all went smoothly and he's going to be back, keeping Dunkin' Donuts in business in no time. What about you, Edel?
Yeah, well, definitely want to reiterate that. You just reminded me I need to text him. But, and then, besides that,
You can piggyback off of late Mother's Day.
yeah, Concede to Slissa. She's having a second soon, if not just happened.
No, they had to push back the induction apparently.
Ooh,
So
yeah. Well, Concede to Slissa because Rachel had to have an induction for reasons, and it's stressful, and also I can't imagine doing another one. So it was a lot. I hope she keeps streaming and everything. I hope she makes it work. She's really an inspiration for me because gives me hope that I'll be able to still stream once Leah's in school and stuff.
You will. You will find a way. I'm pretty confident. It does get less stressful, or it gets stressful differently, but the time shifts. And then you turn around and then you're a passenger in a car that they're driving and hoping that they know what they're doing. So yeah.
That's all right. I'm taking Leah in for rock climbing lessons as soon as she turns 3. So that'll be fun.
Okay. That is that is a thing you can do. Wow. On that note, that'll do it for us for this week. So until next time, keep calm and invent something incredible. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
I know. I'm so excited.
I yield for now.
I concede. Well fought. I concede.
You win this one.
The victory is yours.
You have bested me.
I give up.
You win this one, friend. You win this time.
I choose death.